Trent Harris Show, episode number 3 with Kyler Robertson with Southern Excavation out of Texas. Tell us what you do.
I specialize in land clearing, forestry mulching specifically. Uh, we do haul offs and burns sometimes, but mainly just grubbing and mulching, excavator work, and a little bit of dirt work here and there if we get it.
Right.
And pretty much it.
Are you local to Texas or you travel a little bit or?
Depends on the size of the job, We got a job coming up in East Texas. We're gonna be cleaning up some logging aftermath. But we mainly service the North Texas area and southern Oklahoma border.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of how we are. Most of our stuff's pretty local compared to a lot of the guys. But depending on the job, I mean, we'll go anywhere if the money's there. We're starting to get where we branch out, a little bit further, but like you said, kind of just depends on the money for us too. We're not a road crew. If we can stay home and make about the same money, it's a no-brainer. We're going to stay here.
Usually when I'm going out of town is when I'm more consistent or something that's paying a lot more. That's why I ended up buying the camper is just going, not necessarily out of state, but for future jobs that are going to be further away, it's a no-brainer versus a hotel or Airbnb.
Absolutely. And then you're dragging equipment and parking it in parking lots or even if it's just your truck. It's like I've done that before. In Florida, we had a gooseneck and a skid steer. We had my wife's car at the front of the gooseneck and the skid steer behind it. Dude, I mean, I'm talking transfer tanks, toolboxes, like we were just asking for it. I mean, we needed to hire us a guy to just stand around the truck with an AK all night, but we couldn't pay ourselves. So we got lucky. We didn't lose anything on that. But yeah, that all weighs in too, just the convenience and being able to get there and go to work.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely nice. Campers are, the resale value on those things aren't too good, but man, I hope I'm thinking about keeping it for the long run, and the larger I get, and in the future, hope to be a lot bigger, and that camper is going to definitely come in handy for sure.
Right, right. Maybe have a few more and a few more guys to pull them
Yeah.
at that point. We've looked into that a little bit. We can't justify it right now, but I'm willing to go buy one the minute we can feel like we justify it. We just looked at a decent sized clearing project for a pond, so we're trying to land it, and it's an hour, right at an hour away. So for the most part, we're within an hour, definitely. But if we land something, we got a couple invitations to bid in Arkansas, and something like that, obviously depending on the location and what our other options are, I'd go buy one immediately, if the opportunity justified it. But for an hour away, it's like, man, if we're not going to be there for a week, uh, if it's going to be a long duration deal, then yeah, or and if we don't trust leaving our stuff there without us, that kind of weighs in too for us.
Right.
So what's your TikTok handle? What's your handle on there?
Oh yeah, my handle is Southern Excavation LLC.
Shoot,
Uh, Pretty sure. Hold on, let me see this thing.
it's not good when you got to go back and check. You need to do better on your TikTok.
Yeah, yeah. Follow me. I need more followers.
Everybody does.
Gotta I gotta keep up with Brendan.
Bags don't count. He pays for his followers, and I'm leaving that in here. He doesn't really, but as long as he has more followers than me, I'm going to say he does. Um,
Right.
it's probably a bunch of Norwegians or something fake accounts, but either way, no TikTok. I know we've talked about this a lot, you and me, but and all the guys that we went to Vegas with and in Arkansas with here recently, most of us laughed about that app when it first came out, and thought it was a joke, but it's crazy what the opportunity it's provided all of us. Just getting together and the networking between us. I mean, it sounds dumb, but TikTok has literally changed I think all of our lives for the better. It just being able to be around each other and kind of feed off of that.
Right, absolutely, and and it kinda helps that we're mostly in different areas and serve, different parts of the state and everything like that, but, you know, it's almost like, uh, if you wanna expand or learn things, it's, you know, nice to be able to reach out to a friend that might specialize in something else different than you are, and you can broaden your horizons and learn from them. And you wouldn't be able to like learn from a competitor or call them nearby,
Local, yeah,
and they
yeah, the
have
other
it,
local guys, yeah,
call the local guy, have them try to tell you the truth about some stuff, and because they don't want that competition, they don't want to
right,
compete, so
right,
you
yeah,
know
I 100%
guys
agree.
from other states.
Yeah, 100%. We were just because anything, me and you aren't bidding the same projects typically. So if I've got a big mulching deal, I know that's right up your alley. So you're my very first call, hands down, in the world. If I've got a big acreage, a big plot that needs cleared, I'm calling Kyler to figure out, what I need to do and what I'm missing. We looked at that pond today, and it was different deal than what we're used to because it was just crazy amount of sandstone, and it was on a really steep slope. And my first call was Beggs. I was like, "Hey, you ever done anything like this? What do I need to look out for?" That sort of deal. And he was able to kind of help me through. Not that we couldn't have survived without it, but it's just
Right.
it's super convenient to have, like you said, to have guys in different areas and in different. His soil's different down there. Stuff like
Right.
that. So you get different expertise, and you don't have to worry about their intentions, when you call them. Like when I call Beggs, he's willing to help me. And the same, if he calls me on something uh to do with something a little bit outside of his wheelhouse, I can help him. And having that relationship with different people in Starnes and all of them to where, you can feed off of that. And it just like you said, it broadens what you're able to do from that point.
Yeah, I mean, it never hurts having a second opinion, and can't you can't be like narrow minded, like everything, like you always have to take, it's always good to have other ideas, and to think of different ways to do something, or I mean, there could always be something you're missing, that they might know that's going to help you and improve your business, do a better job for the customer, and that'll get you more work because they'll tell their neighbor or their friends or whatever, and that's how you grow, by doing the best job you can and being the best at what you do.
100%, man. And one of the things for me has been what's normal to me, based on what I've seen from other guys in my area. What's normal here may not be as normal, an hour or 4 hours or 5 hours away. They may do it differently. And like you said, having those contacts to where you can call and like, hey, here's what I got, here's what I'm up against, how would you do this? And having that open mindedness doesn't mean I have to agree with it. I may call one of the guys in our group, and I may call Starnes and be like, hey, here's what I'm up against. And he may be like, well, I do this. And I may be like, oh, I don't agree. Or I may be like, dude, I've never thought of that. That's huge. Nobody around here does that. And
Right.
that's been a lot of the situation, like with bags, from bidding jobs to what equipment to use, just stuff like that. Where it wouldn't we wouldn't typically do that here, and it's like, well, shoot, that's normal, a couple hours away. Like, why don't we look into that? And then it ends up being light years better, and
Right.
we kind of paved the way for that, locally.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been, I don't know, TikTok is, I would have never imagined that it would have been as beneficial as it has been. I mean, if that's how I met all you guys, but I would have never went to Con Expo. That was a life-changing experience and completely altered the course the business was on.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
Arkansas
Absolutely.
was the same way. We would have never met Trey. Trey Bohannon, if you're watching this, we appreciate you. Uh, I'm sure you're drinking a Bud Light right now. Uh, but
Yeah,
probably
I
listening
get
to
it.
Britney Spears or something. But no, I mean those people that genuinely want to give back and help people. Uh, the Arkansas trip that we made for that show changed the course of the company. And maybe one of these days I sell everything and go back to running a single man, single truck, single skid steer. Right now, that's not in the cards. That I'm trying to go forward. I'm trying to get as big as we can, um, and just constantly reevaluating, what path we're on and where we're trying to go. And the best way I've found to do that is just being around that group of guys that are all like minded and feeding off each other because you are who you're around. I mean, I live by that, and you end up in a slump and you never realize it until it's too late. And you look back 5 years later and you're like, why didn't I do anything I said I was going to do? But when you've got bigger players, on speed dial that you can call, and every time somebody in the group makes a move, it motivates me. There's no envy, not envious or jealous of it. It motivates me. That's exciting. Well, if he did that, then why can't I do that? Why can't I, go beyond that? Like he's killing it. It pushes us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all in different areas, so it's like if you really want to get into something specific that one of your buddies is doing, you can just, call him and ask questions and stuff. Like I've been really trying to get into grading, right? And I have two jobs right now because I just get blown up for clearing. Like I do clearing 5 to 7 days a week.
Right.
And I just, I got two grading plans and I'm just barely learning how to read grade. I can't really read grade plans that well. And it's crazy. I mean, most of them are residential too. I mean, they're not, really commercial or anything crazy. Like they're just big residential homes. And I've been passing most of my stuff like that on to friends that specialize in that, that have dozers and everything like that. And because it seems like whenever I get grading, it's home builders and which I don't have an issue with home builders at all. I like to go in there and I like to be the first one in, grub all the trees, mulch them, and put the mulch in a roll off and haul it off or leave the mulch or whatever. And, they're ready for a dozer to come in and grade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or a skid steer or anything like that. But I've noticed a lot of the dirt work in my area, or at least towards the city with all the builders to kind of get good with the builders. Um, they pay dozer prices that are reasonable, but it seems like all the skid steer prices are too low for what I want to run mine for.
Well,
Um,
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the things we keep running into. It weighed into the decision to buy the new track hoe, the bigger track hoe. It seems like, when I first got into this, skid steers weren't that common. I mean, you saw them around, but
right,
now it seems like every Tom, Dick, and Harry got a skid steer for Christmas and they'll do it cheaper. Uh,
absolutely.
and it's like lawn care, and it's like, man, I'm to grow legitimately and have insurance and have, the different stuff you need to be a legitimate business and to have employees, and to make sure you're all fed and to make sure the bank's not calling you. The overhead is higher the bigger you get, obviously, and that's what we would run into. Is I use this example all the time. We used to be able to go do a $400 job and make 200 on it. Now, if I
Right,
go do a $400 job, I lose 600. Like
right.
I lost money to do that. We have to make X amount per day, just to stay afloat.
Yeah, just keep up with repair costs and diesel and everything like that. Like, um, I don't want to say we break down a lot, but most of the guys that you talk to that specialize in forestry and clearing, anything in the woods just gets beat up. I mean, it's
Right.
going to break all the time. So I always have to charge accordingly to cover, any kind of repairs. I mostly do all the repairs myself. Um, but sometimes when I need, stuff welded on or, if it needs something that I might not be capable of doing, that's going to cost. So you gotta throw that that cost in there. And I know a lot of guys in Texas have talked to me about the prices of skid steers and stuff because we have there's a lot of people specifically in Texas that run paid off like Bobcats, that might have cost them 10 grand or so, and they're running them for anywhere from 60 to $80 an hour for home builders. And they're really just getting by doing that. We try to stay, my compact track loader doesn't move for less than 120 running the bucket. And that's about standard for Texas is about 120. Um, but home builders just find, the most affordable people they can, whether they can speak English or not.
Right.
Um, and that's what's hurting the dirt side real bad in Texas. But the people like you said before, the people with larger machines are succeeding. If you have a track hoe or a dozer, or you get into larger grading, that washes those bobcat people out of the
Yeah, yeah, you're either legitimate or you're very new and you haven't went bankrupt yet. For the most part, that's what I see is these guys are either, like I said, they've been doing it a long time and they know what they have to charge, or they're cutting throats and they'll be cutting their own here soon. They aren't going to last. And you gotta deal with that. But the bigger market seems a lot less saturated. At least for now. But those guys, like I said, they figured it out, or they've went out of business for the most part. And I feel like they work together a lot more. I'm not saying that it's not a cutthroat business on the big side too, but it
right,
seems less. It seems less of this giant company is not going to go undercut this giant company, just to get the
right,
job.
exactly,
It's a lot more. I hate to say unionized, but it's a lot more. It's a lot more civilized in the aspect of hey, none of us want to go broke. So, and
well,
there's
it's
I work a lot with a lot of the local guys here. I have a good working relationship with a lot of the local guys, and I'll call. There's one guy that he's been doing it a while, and he's helped me from day one. Kind of get going in the dump truck part of it, and
right,
I just call him. He'll call me. He called me the other day. Hey, check the mail. APAC just sent us a price increase in the mail, and I'm like, I would have saw that 2 months from now, and my price would have
right,
stayed the same. And when it came time to pay that invoice at the end of the month, I would have been like, this ain't adding up. I got a $10,000 bill to APAC, and I didn't bill. I didn't adjust my prices.
right,
So he helped me out in that regard. In the same aspect, had he not told me that, I would have been undercutting him, to customers. So
right,
I would have got all the loads. He would have got, a lot less of the loads. I would have lost money on the back end. He would have lost money on the front end. So
right,
people are smart enough to realize that, like, hey, you know, I'll go run mine for 125. You run yours for 125. And that guy's son, I work close with, he's the operator, does all their dirt work. And he's the first guy I call. I remember when we were at 75 an hour years ago. And I called him one day and I'm like, hey man, we need to go to 100. And he's like, you think so? And I'm like, yeah, look at the numbers. Like, look at our costs. This was before everything really, launched. This was,
yeah, jumped up,
yeah. And this was even before that. And I'm like, hey, yeah, look at your numbers. And he's like, yeah, I think I agree. And he started diving into it. And he's like, yeah, dude, we're getting closer and closer to breaking even here. Something ain't right. And I'm like, yeah, dude, we've got to go up. Milk went up. We need to go up. That's the way it is. And but because of that, it's the same thing applies. I'm not getting all the work and going broke doing it while he's sitting at home. Uh,
right,
we're able to come up together. Now that I don't have that relationship with everybody with a skid steer, obviously it doesn't work that way. There's still the cutthroat guys that are going to go around and do it for free until they go out of business. And that hurts us, but it's kind of unavoidable. But I think it's more avoidable on on the bigger scale with the bigger equipment, because not
right.
every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a 30,000 pound track hoe, in their backyard that can go do it cheaper.
I think I think I run into a lot of older folks that that run their equipment for really cheap because they say they want to stay around the house and stuff like that. But what I think it is I think they've been running that same number, for the past 30 years,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they don't see why they should change it, or they don't understand that things have changed. Um, like I was on a job site the other day and I asked, this old man, like, what are you running dozer for? And he told me usually $90 an hour. And I was like, no kidding.
It's
And
crazy.
he was
It's
like, I mean,
I respect the moral side of it, like that's nice of you, but the economic side of it is
right,
what are you doing this for? Like, are you doing it because,
exactly,
like, hell, I can go broke watching TV, you know? I don't ever watch TV
right.
because I don't like going broke, but if I'm gonna go broke, I'll stay home and do it. That's what's crazy to me, like, yeah, I get it, that's nice
And,
of you to help your customers
and
out.
he's busy, and he's really busy. So it's not like, man, the way I see it is like if you don't have anything lined up at all, or you just started your company and you're a little desperate to, and you got to put food on the table for your kids, and you got to pay rent that month, and you got to pay your machine payment, and like things are getting tight. I can understand doing that, but uh, it seems like people that are 6 months out, those older folks and a lot of people that don't speak English, like they're 12 months out on work, they're hooked up with builders, they have contracts, and they'll just be cheap, but it's also that line of work. That's why I kind of stay out of doing stuff like that, like rough grades and final grades for home builders. Custom home builders, they'll pay. But when it comes to just, regular builders, they can't compete, you know.
What
Um,
I've noticed too, I totally agree, and we don't do hardly anything for builders, I'm not opposed to it, we don't land those, and I think that's why. However, fast forward 3 years after that house is complete and someone's moved in it, we're there fixing it. Time and time again, I looked at 2 today, and, I mean, we'll look at those all week long where it's, "What do I do about this?" We just did one the other day that was, flooding back towards the house because, like you said, it's cheapest bid gets it, with those guys a
yeah.
lot of the times. It's cookie
And
cutter, in and out.
they rush it. They rush it. And they're just, you know, roughing it in. Like, no, they're not hitting any lasers. They're not really checking drainage. You
Right,
know,
it's dumping material and pushing it and leaving, you
just
know?
making it look pretty and leaving is what is pretty
Yeah.
much what it is. They're
Well, and
not
I think a lot of part of
really
that
doing
is
good.
they're not gonna get a call back on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, their hands are clean, and that's the issue I see is these people come in, they cookie cutter houses, they get them blown up, they get the yards pushed with horrible topsoil. Don't even get me started about their topsoil, all right? Because I got the best topsoil in the world, and they ain't using mine because they can't afford it because they don't want to pay it.
That's why their sod's always dead.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
We literally
always
did a
dead.
yard grade for a house that had been there for whatever 4 or 5 years, and we're back
Right.
there uh redoing the whole thing, hauling in topsoil, reseeding it, you name it. And I look next door and they just put up a new house, and here comes all this, light colored sand basically with
Yeah. That's
a little
that's exactly what they do. My sister just bought a brand new house in Decatur, and it has sand, and
I'm
there's not
thinking,
even something on it yet.
so
But
my soil looks like my shirt and theirs look like my pants. I don't know if you can see my pants.
it,
That's the difference in color right there between my soil and what they're using. And but like I said, that customer isn't going to call the home builder from 3 years ago and be like, "Hey, why didn't you,
right,
do a better final grade?" They're just like, "Wow, my house is flooding and I don't have grass. Who do I call?" Well, they call me and then they pay. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'd
they're
like
just
to have a bunch of these turnkey lined up, but I'm not
the
gonna,
builders are cutting corners so they can, I guess, make more money down the road. Because like the stonemasons, they charge a lot, retaining walls charge a lot. there's other things that charge a lot, so I assume they try to be cheap for the dirt work, which kind of hurts them at the end because the sod won't grow. And around my town and Springtown and other places in Texas, every time there's a flood or something, they have severe drainage issues on brand new homes because the dirt work wasn't prepared properly because they were like, hey, we got 300 house pads, rough grade and final grade, who can do it all at once the cheapest.
Right, right.
And so they don't have that drainage on the pad, and the house just floods. And that's bad news because that's a $500,000 house.
Yeah,
It's pretty average price, and
right.
it's destroyed.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm like, do you not realize that that's all the way around your house? Like, it seems like that's the thing that gets cheaped on.
Right,
And and it's a big cost. I mean, our topsoil, we're selling our topsoil delivered around 150 to $200 more than what they're getting that stuff for, which to me is a no brainer. I'm like, dude, it's $200, but uh
right,
in the grand scheme of things, if you're talking 10 loads times however many, or 5 loads or whatever, it's like, well, that adds up. But there's no obligation, there's no liability on those people, in my opinion. There's nothing holding them to the fire to answer for that. Like they build the house, boom, it's done, they move on. They can deal with it later, and that's what happens. They call us and we go back in. And I hate those, I really do. I don't know what it is, but the more yard grades and drainage type yards, residential yards. We just
yeah,
looked at one today and I'm like, oh, I don't know what it is about it, but I'd rather push rock or push big dirt or dig ponds, clear land. But when we get these small little residential deals, I'm like, man. And I think a lot of it is like I said, our overhead being higher.
right,
It's like, man, we need 9 of these lined up in order to go out and pay all of our overhead, for that day and to make some money.
right. I, you know, there's a lot of guys that do what I do in Texas a lot. It's super competitive, and the successful ones, have told me that they established great relationships with home builders, probably mostly custom home builders, but home builders in general. And I've worked for a handful, um, but I've never had consistent work from a home builder. Most of my work comes from farm and ranch. Uh, Shout out to North Texas, farm and ranch, and land developers that are always developing something, um, or you know, commercial easements, little sewer easements, maybe a little gas line easement, little stuff like that here and there.
What's
Um,
interesting to me is everything you just named needs to be done right. Right. I mean,
exactly.
like I said, like we keep going back to these little yard grades and stuff. There's nothing holding them accountable to that.
Right,
But everything else you just named, and same for me. We got a call today about commercial storage buildings, doing the whole site development. As far as I know, I don't have all the info yet, but it'll be some land clearing, if not all of the land clearing, the prep, and then all the gravel, like getting everything, turnkey, start to finish on
right,
the site work. And they know that has to be done right, you know. So when homeboy down the road is like, well, I can do it for 2 grand, and they're like, well, yeah, and then somebody's gonna have to come back in and fix it for 15 grand later. We might as well just do it right up front, uh
right,
so I think that's a big part of it. And I'm like, well, if you just want the cheapest bid, then yeah, go with those guys. uh we're more established now. And you were talking earlier about doing the stuff cheaper starting out, and I totally get it. And I'm the same way, but or when you're really needing the money. But what I've started finding out here more recently is like the overhead's still there. uh
right,
so like you still have to, like, if we get tight and we really need the money, in some ways, in a weird way, I almost have to be more careful about how cheap I do it. Because for example, we went to a job the other day and It was a 1 day job, wasn't nothing crazy. It was a full day, but wasn't nothing crazy. We lost a carrier bearing in the dump truck and a final drive on the skid steer. And it's like,
Oh,
dang, what if this would have been say it was $1,000 job that I quoted at 600 because I really needed some money. Well,
right,
now I just made 600 and it cost me, say 5 grand said and done. And it's
right.
like, it's weird because it's almost inverted in a way of how it used to be of like, man, we're tight, we need to do stuff cheaper. And now it's like, man, we're tight, we got to really be careful. We can't afford to underbid. We can't afford to underbid stuff or we're gonna run out of money in a
Right.
hurry.
Yeah, and the thing about that is, like, to be honest, when I first started my business, I started, just doing anything I could. Like, honestly, some of my first jobs were demolition, and I haven't had any demolition in a long, long time. But I would demo houses. I would do a little clearing with, like, grapple and stuff like that. And but what I noticed was, man, I think when I raised my prices, I got busier.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
seems the more I raise the price, like, maybe the customer's like, okay, like, he's he might
Legitimate.
be one of the highest guys, or he's in the middle. It's either average price or higher, and,
Yeah.
like, they want to go with that versus the cheaper guy because they don't want it half-assed, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Um,
And the
so
smart
as
ones
soon as I
do that. If I'm going to buy anything, insert whatever I'm going to buy, you get what you pay for.
right,
I mean, if it's something
that's
that,
exactly right.
yeah,
And I get questions all the time from customers, whether it's residential, commercial, land developer, or anybody. Um, a lot of people are confused about forestry mulching and stuff because it seems like every time I go bid a job, okay, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? Are you building an apartment complex? Are you using it for pasture, or are you just you're putting a double wide on it or something like that?
yeah,
Um, so I try to tell them, like, wherever you're building, the stumps have to come out.
right,
And the most affordable thing to do, especially in the city, I do a lot of work in the city, because you can't burn, and hauling off 3 acres is a lot more affordable when it's grinded up,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So if you can dig up 3 acres and grind it, now it's affordable to haul off versus those huge trees, of 3 acres being hauled off. So I'm saving the customer money, but back to what I was saying, it's like a lot of them think they're like, we don't want to use the mulcher guy because we've used mulcher guys in the past, and they just grind everything. Now it's harder to dig up the stumps.
right,
So I was like, well, that's their mistake. Like, because when you grind a stump flush and you don't have the whole tree as leverage, yeah, it's almost impossible to dig up flush stumps. You can't even see them. It's bad. Like, it's like you're paying for the clearing. I won't even say twice. I'd say 3 times after that.
yeah,
And so a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth because, I suppose, a lot of forestry mulcher guys go out there and they so this is how it goes. Like, about 90% of the customers, when I say, anything about mulching, it's almost like in their mind, there's like only one way. Like, they're like, okay, if you're the mulcher guy, if we don't want to do that, we got to hire the dozer guy. It's
right,
like that's not how it works. Like, I can do it all.
yeah,
And the most affordable route in the city where you can't burn is to dig it all up with the excavator, and then grind it up. And then if they don't like the fine, garden mulch that we leave on the job site, we could easily scrape it up with a bucket, throw it in the roll off. Very affordable. Roll offs are $350, a roll off in Dallas, and just get that picked up, and you're done. I mean,
yeah.
it's ready to be great with the dozer,
I feel
and
like from a soil standpoint, because I'm the soil guy, why not leave those nutrients I get that a lot of them don't, but I've always kind of wondered, maybe I'm missing something, but I'm like, man, like, yeah, it may look ugly for a little while, but like that's gonna break down and it's just nothing but nutrients for the soil, in my opinion. But I don't know, maybe I'm
Yeah,
missing.
some of my customers, it's obviously if you mulch without getting the stumps out, you can't till, right? Because you're hitting stumps.
Yeah,
But if you grub it, like some of my customers I've grubbed, dug up all the root balls, grinded the root balls and everything, and they've tilled the mulch into their topsoil. And they've seeded and done whatever, and they've had grass grown in, a month.
right,
There's so many ways to go about it, but it just seems like kind of customers think. I think some people uh will pick the most affordable price, and there's so many different ways you can do it. Like say if they're building a house or or even a warehouse or anything, you can take all the stumps out of there and grind them and then grind the rest of the stuff around it that's not going to be built on, because
right.
that's going to save them money.
Yeah,
And then that'll grow grass in 3 or 4 months or whatever, and be able to be maintained.
right.
um
Yeah, I think you're I think it sounds like a lot of them just associate you with the mulching. And that's frustrating when it's like, well, hang on, I'm not the mulcher guy, I'm the land clearing guy. Uh,
exactly.
I'm the dirt work, I'm the heavy equipment guy. Like we can do whatever you want. Um, we run into that, or we used to, especially uh, on a smaller scale. Let's say we go quote a driveway, and let's say to strip down to base and subgrade it and put down a good base rock, say for sake of numbers, it's $2,000. And you never hear back, and then you drive by and someone has just tailgated 1 inch across the grass and called it good for
Right.
$500 for
Yeah.
2 loads of 1 inch, and I'm like, well, hang
Right.
on, like we could have done that. Like we have the capabilities to leave the skid steer at home and not strip the soil and not grade it and not put down a base rock. Like, do
Not
you think,
compacted it.
yeah, like, do you think we're not capable of that? Like, they have so much equipment, they can't not use it all? Like, what do you mean? I can
this
back
is
in there and chain the gate and drop rock with the rest of them.
this is where they get confused. Like some of my customers always tell me that they're like, wow, you have a lot of options. I was like, well, there's a lot of ways to go around it, just like that driveway. Like just tailgating it in, that would be like if I just came in and mulched everything.
Right,
Like there's so many ways to go about it. So I always give them pretty much three prices: to mulch it all, or to grub and mulch, or to grub and mulch and put the mulch in a haul off.
right.
I'll give them three prices, and it's whatever they're willing to afford, or when what they really want is what they're gonna get pretty much.
Yeah, and
And
I think some of them you lose because of the amount of options, as dumb as it sounds. I don't know, because we run into that. We're looking at that clearing job today for the pond, like I was saying, and I'm like, hey, we want to clear it first before we stake out a pond. You can't walk through there. I've pulled 9 ticks off of me. I can still feel them crawling around. I haven't taken a shower yet,
oh yeah, me too. I had one behind my knee, man, and it's still
dude.
still
We go to
itches.
leave. I was riding with my buddy, and we don't get a half mile down the road, and I feel one right here, and I reach up, and it's a caterpillar on my neck. So that's how thick this joint was. Anyway, point
Hell yeah.
being, I'm like, hey, we need to open this up before we can't see anything in here. I mean, it's a steep hill. Some places are more level. He says he wants an acre pond, which is big. I mean, that's a good sized pond. So
That's a pretty good sized pond.
yeah, and he's wanting us to look at the yard. He wants soil up there off of the pond, what we strip. I'm like, well, we probably need that for the dam once we get done to top dress it, unless you don't want that. Like, I'll do whatever the customer wants as long as it's understood, and it's not going to come back on me. Uh, if I tell you it needs something, you're like, well, no, just do X. We're doing X. That sounds great to me. It just needs to be understood. potentially in writing, depending on the project, that that's how you wanted it. You know, if you want me to dig a pond with no soil test, I know a lot of guys that are, you know, if we can't dig test holes, we won't dig the pond. And I'm like, I damn sure will. I'll roll in there and I'll dig a pond every time, but I'm gonna have something signed that says that, you know, they wanted the hole dug, because that's what
Right.
I'm for at that point. And they're like, well, I don't want the liability of something coming back like that. And I'm like, dude, if I've got it in writing, my name's good enough around here that people are going to draw the right conclusions off of that, you know. Um,
Right.
if we go do a drive, so for back to the driveway example, well, I won't just tailgate over sod. You know, that won't hold up, and I don't want to get called back on it. And I'm like, dude, if that's what they want, I'll do it. You know, but like you said, I'll give them the option of, hey, we can strip this, we can build you a driveway that's going to last. You know, we get that all the time where it's like, well, I really don't want to spend that much. I'm really just trying to get gravel back here.
They
100%.
hate paying material costs, man. Like,
Yeah. Well, and the labor, you know, it's like, well, so and so said they could do it for this. Well, so can I. But you're going to get